going live on YouTube. We're live on YouTube. And like I said, just give me a minute to get Mariana in.
And good evening, everyone. As usual, we'll just give it a few moments here for everyone to be able to join in and populate the meeting.
There she is. I think I have Mariana over here now.
Okay, I'm here, Jenny.
Perfect. I'm just adding the interpretation, so give me a second.
Yeah, and shall I do the introduction?
Yes.
Yes, why don't you go ahead, Mariana? Thank you.
Oh, great. Hello, guys.
You're on. Go ahead.
Ok, hola, buenas noches a todos. Estamos comenzando nuestro webinar de esta noche. A los que deseen escuchar esta reunión en español, tienen la opción de hacerlo seleccionando una burbuja que dice Spanish. Y los que no quieran seguir en inglés, continúan aquí. Muchas gracias. Adiós. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're in interpretation now. Perfect. We are good to go. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we will reconvene to open session for this evening. And we, as we usually do, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So everyone, if you have a flag, please go ahead and look at that. If not, just turn to the right and say the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. And can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Julie. Any comments or changes on the agenda? All right, and we will, Trustee Fernandez.
Aye.
Trustee Julie.
Aye.
And Angie.
Aye.
And Kelly. Aye. All right, now we will move on to input from the public on items not on the open session agenda. And just as a reminder, if an agenda item is agendized this evening, I will ask you to kindly stop your comments and wait until that agenda item is received for this evening. And so with that, we will use our normal process where we will ask people to kindly raise your hand. And we'll give it a couple seconds for people to raise your hand, and then we will move you into the room to allow for public comment. Anyone else? All right, looks like we have 5 speakers. What is the preference for the board as far as timing for our speakers this evening? You want 2 minutes? Okay, let's go ahead and bring them in, Jenny, and we will give each of them 2 minutes.
Hold on, I'm just getting my clock ready. And just for confirmation, the last speaker will be Sasha.
Yep.
First speaker, Jessie Mills, followed by L. Hilton, Joan Schmidt, Tara Del Drago, and last speaker is Sasha Benedetti. Jessie, you have the floor.
Leslie Mills here. First of all, I just want to point out to the board, I'm a little concerned that the board has not addressed the Brown Act violation that they were notified of for renewing the superintendent's contract without complying with a number of government code sections they were apprised of through an email. The response was citing an education code as well as a case. And that case is specifically in regards to the superintendent's procedural due process rights and has zero relevance to the government code sections. These are two separate bodies of law. And although the board may be complying with the education code, they still have a duty to comply with the government code under the Brown Act. So I hope the board takes another look at that and readdresses that at the next meeting. In addition to that, I'm just asking that the board members who are subject to recall or who are not willing to revote to not consolidate high schools, step down from the board. We're having these discussions about cost savings, and not having a recall election would be a huge cost saving. And I know the board looks at this and blames us, the constituents, for this added cost, but it's not us. It's the board's fault. The board's not doing what its constituents want and what we voted you into office to do. And so take that and please save the district money and step down. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Before we just step into the next comment, Jenny, I do want to take a moment for a point of clarification on information that was just presented by the speaker. Per our legal counsel, the board has not violated Brown Act. Thank you.
Our next speaker is L. Hilton. If you could state your full name for the record.
I'm Linda Hilton. I want to address the board regarding the rebranding of Anley High School. I think it is such an unnecessary cost. I've been to a lot of board meetings. I've never seen a board approve a motion for this big of an expense without actually knowing what it's going to cost. And I think that's a ridiculous waste of money for the 300 kids coming over from El Molino. And it was the actions of this board that drove a wedge between the Anley community and the El Molino community. And that is unfortunately for you guys sitting on the board, we've now joined forces. And El Molino is now agreeing, that parent group is now agreeing to not rebrand. The money can be spent other places, and it is ridiculous for you to continue without at least hearing what we're saying. The money can go so many places. The uniforms you picked, I'm sorry, the ugliest things I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot. I think you need to reconsider that and listen to the people who put you in this office, because as far as I can tell, you're not. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Joan Schmidt. I might have to unmute you. Hold on. Joan, can you go ahead and unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Good evening. This is in regards to the rebranding of Annalee High. My name is Joan, and I'm Annalee class of 83. When I first heard about the rebranding of Annalee High, my knee-jerk reaction was only against the name change. After learning more about the rebranding process, I'm still opposed to the name change, but more important, I'm opposed based on what is best for the students and the community. I feel the rebranding is a complete waste of time and money when it could be used toward programs for the kids. I have to wonder about this school board's motivation and why they feel this is a good use of funds when the district couldn't afford to keep El Molino open. And signing a contract with Varsity Brands to strictly use Varsity Brands, which is the highest price vendor for school needs, is economically thoughtless. Not to mention this cuts out any local vendors. We need to put a stop to the rebranding, take a breath, and think about what's really best for the students. And if the school board is not willing, I'm very suspicious as to what's really going on behind the scenes. I'd like to close by saying Annalee was a 19th century township that included Sebastopol and Forestville. I know that Annalee High can be inclusive of Sebastopol kids, Forestville kids, and any others without rebranding. Thank you. Go Tigers.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker is, sorry, having trouble with my clock. Tara Del Drago.
Hi, thank you. I would absolutely like to mirror what the prior speakers have all said.
Oh, I did not mean to do that. Somebody unmuted themselves. I apologize. Tara, let me go find you really quick. Tara, I apologize. Somebody moved around on my screen, so please start again.
Okay, thank you. I was just saying I would like to mirror what the prior parties said regarding unnecessarily and completely irresponsible spending continuously by the board and approving things that are absolutely ridiculous. And we could be saving all the schools, keeping everything, instead of spending this money on the rebranding with, like the prior speaker said, the most expensive vendor. It's a little bit ridiculous, as well as also this lawsuit. Looking back to the prior years, this has been brought up actually by all of you too, with the length of time. This has been going on for a long time, with the money getting worse and worse with the spending. And maybe that goes to say that for however many years that Kelly and Jeannie, that you guys have been on the board, that it's been too long, and new blood should have come in a lot earlier to help fix the problem instead of continuously having it happen. So that is just one more irresponsible spending on your part, that it hasn't actually been fixed. It's still getting worse. So again, please reconsider the consolidation of these schools. Let all these students stay where they should and feel comfortable. It can be happen. It can be fine, and the monies will be figured out and can happen, instead of, again, spending unnecessarily and irresponsibly. So we have bonded with the other group as well, and we are working extremely hard to make this happen. So we urge you to do as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, can you tell me who the speaker was prior to Tara?
It was Linda Helton.
Okay, so our next speaker is Joan Schmitz.
Joan already went, Jenny.
Did she? So this is,
Sorry.
I can't ask enough. People don't raise their hand or unmute themselves because it just moves around on my screen. Last speaker then is Sasha Benedetti. You have the floor. There you go.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Sasha Benedetti. Thanks for having me. I haven't done this before. I've been a resident of Sebastopol for 22 years, and I'm currently a parent of an Annalee student. And I moved to come here today to express my concern about reopening for next year. What I'm hearing about the policies sound like they may continue to really negatively impact our teens, as I'm sure you know, teen suicides are spiking, and we've all suffered this last year adjusting with the COVID crisis, but what's happening with the teens feels really critical, and the school's job is to support them in recouping lost learning time and to really help them. We know that the mental, emotional, and physical health have to be in place for them to learn. So I want to voice my opposition for continuing to mask our teens. The efficacy of the masks is questionable. We know the virus does not seriously impact this age group, and it's not enough to deprive them of breathing fresh air, their need to face-to-face interaction with teachers and peers. Knowing what we know now, it's not healthy or normal to keep masking these young people. So more than that, I want to advocate that the district does not cave to the current wave of discrimination against students based on their medical status. it's been talk about unprecedented, this advertising campaign using peer pressure to get people to vaccinate when no one but that person and their family knows what's appropriate for their health. And so our teenagers are coming of age. They need to feel belonging and independence. And many of the businesses in town are discriminating by medical status. This is incredibly stressful for our teens who may have very good reason for not doing this experimental vaccination that's still in trials. I'm connected to a lot of other parents who share my concerns and are maybe afraid to come forward because there's a lot of backlash against families right now. Even though the WHO just came out, even though the WHO just came.
We have 2 additional people who raised their hands after we had called for it. Do you guys want to allow those people to speak?
What is the preference of the board? Go ahead. Yeah, we'll let them in this time, but I just want to reiterate to people that the raising the hand feature works as a speaker card would when we begin to meet back in person. And so it's really important that you raise your hand at the beginning moving forward this evening. Thank you.
Perfect. Next speaker is Gillian Hayes, and then Kara Mendez, if you can go ahead and raise your hand. Thank you. You'll be our next speaker. Gillian, you have the floor.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, good. So just so you know, sometimes when I put my hand up, it gets put back down. And so, I mean, I've been listening, but just so you know, there are technical difficulties. So I'll get right to it. This consolidation that the board has put forward at the direction of the superintendent is a total farce. You've heard it from other speakers. You spent more money than you claim to save with this consolidation. 3 vice principals, sorry, I just got out of the dentist and my mouth is half numb. 2 athletic directors, 3 ag teachers, more busing to and from Elmo, sports uniforms and rebranding costs. Varsity quoted $1.2 million in a March meeting. The moving furniture bills, the portable classroom bills, teachers working through the summer to try and implement this half-baked plan to consolidate. The lawsuit is a cost. The recall will be a cost when we put the 3 of you on the ballot for a special election. It all costs more than you claim to save by closing El Molino. We are not stupid. What happens when you realize your school consolidation process led by the superintendent's guidance violated CEQA and broke the law we called out to you October, December, January, February, and March? Will you listen to the public then? That the recommended path of the superintendent has cost our children access to education and violated the law? Will you fire her? Will you reverse your decision and spend our money more responsibly to keep El Molino open? Or will you keep going down this path that is ill-guided? Will you do the right thing when we prove that what was done was illegal? Or do we need to keep pushing this recall? We're 1/3 the way getting the signatures. We've done it for 1 month. We have 2 months left, and it's going to go on the ballot. Will you keep spending our tax money from the district to defend 3 people who made poor votes to close our school? They should just resign now and save the district the $100,000 for the special election. Be responsible, Kelly, Lori, and Jeannie. Jeannie, you're already out next fall anyways. You might as well just step down and save the district the money. If you care about the kids, let us spend the money on the children, not us removing you from your position.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kara Mendez.
Hi, good evening. I would like to echo what Jessie Mills said and Gillian was saying as well. If the 3 board members who are facing a potential recall care about the budget, the kids, the district, they can save around $100,000 by stepping down now. Also, Kelly, thank you for mentioning in-person meetings. We are ready for them. We hope after your guys' month off in July, we can resume in-person meetings where we won't be muted after 2 minutes. Thank you.
All right, so now we are done with public comments and we will move on to consent calendar. Can I have a motion for the consent calendar?
Kelly?
Yes.
I want to I talked with Tony earlier, and we're going to pull the number 3 and discuss it separately.
Okay. So do you want
Other than that, I will make a motion to approve consent calendar item 1 and 2.
All right. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Great. Thank you, Jolie. Any comments or questions other than Jeannie pulling the item? All right. We'll go ahead and vote on these number 1 and 2. Jeannie.
Aye.
Angie.
Aye.
Julie.
Aye.
Kelly. Aye. And then we will discuss consideration of approval of contract with 10,000 Degrees. But before we move into discussion, can I get a motion for that?
I move that we approve the contract with 10,000 Degrees.
And a second?
I'll second.
All right. Tony.
Yes, the contract with 10,000 Degrees is part of the CSI plan for Laguna. I believe Allie Green is in the audience, and I asked her to speak on that contract.
Did you want me to bring her into the room?
That would be great.
Happy summer.
Allie, do you want to explain what the contract with 10,000 Degrees is about?
Absolutely. 10,000 Degrees is a program that specializes in getting first-generation kids post-secondary education. What they do, it's called near-peer mentorship. So 10,000 Degrees will go out into the community, like of recent college graduates, and they will find a recent college graduate that matches the demographic of the school community that's at risk. So for us, they're specifically looking at a kid who recently graduated from high school or from college, who went to a continuation high school. Then that person essentially becomes part of our campus community, and they spend 3 to 4 days on campus with our kids, mentoring our kids, and becoming academic, for lack of a better word, so that going through their senior year, that they see themselves as kids who can go to college. Why I love the program so much is that kids are 8 times more likely than kids in a similar demographic to have college persistence rates, so to stay in college, graduate from college within 6 years. And the program also will help every single kid complete the FAFSA. So they work one-to-one. And if the FAFSA is federal financial aid, and if you guys have never filled out that FAFSA form, it is a really challenging form to fill out, and it's really hard for kids. And we did a big push to get every single one of our kids to have filled out the FAFSA this year, and it's hugely time consuming. And so our hope is, that's what 10,000 Degrees, that's kind of their specialty. So they will get every single kid to complete the FAFSA. FAFSA also has, if you look at post-secondary outcomes, that's another place where there's really significant positive post-secondary outcomes. It's one of the leading indicators of post-secondary success is whether or not a kid has filled out the FAFSA. And then they will get them connected to whatever type of post-secondary education that the kid wants. We also did a big push to get kids connected to SRJC this year, and we had quite a bit of success with that. And the 10,000 Degrees near peer will work with every single senior in order to get them to do the FAFSA and then get them either into SRJC or whatever other post-secondary institution they would like to attend.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board on that?
Thank you, Allie, for explaining. I appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight so that you could explain it so that the board and the public had an idea. When we do really great things like this, I like to hear about it, and I think so does our community. Our community likes to hear too. So,
one of my goals and one of the things I think is that we've been really building this past year at Laguna is building a community where post-secondary education is a certainty. And I don't think that historically for our kids has been a certainty. And if you look at ways that, I mean, we just look at the reality of Laguna, like it's pretty much 80%. We know our kids need help and they need support, and we know that the more education they have, the more life security they have. So for every single diploma that they have, every single post-secondary training they have, the more stability we are giving them and the more ability we are giving them to get out of generational poverty. And so for me, like, this is like, how could we not do this? Like, this gets our kids access to exactly what our kids and our community needs.
Well, thank you, Allie. I've worked with 10,000 Degrees over the years and have a lot of respect for their program. And I know they've tried to partner with our district for many, many years. So I'm excited that we're finally moving forward with this partnership. Thank you for your leadership. I really appreciate all you're doing. Any other comments? All right, Jeannie, we'll go ahead and vote.
Wait, you have public comments.
Oh, I do? Okay, sorry. Thank you. You want to bring them into the room?
Yeah. And I know there's a second one because she just emailed me. Are you doing the full 3 minutes for 2 speakers?
Sure.
That's fine.
So I just have to change my clock. First speaker, Leah Woody, followed by Jennifer Duckhorn. Leah, you have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, and I also, as you know, like Kelly, we probably all, everybody on the board probably has a knowing of 10,000 Degrees, and I applaud what they do. I also would urge the board to educate themselves on the relationship that happened with 10,000 Degrees and also El Molino, because that happened. And I'd also recommend looking at just maybe, yes, you know, as Allie said, FAFSA is very time consuming. I also want to remind everyone that the JC will continue to have their free workshops. I don't want this to be for the board and our district because a money issue, a big money pit, because it doesn't need to be that way, because the JC actually offers free FAFSA workshops, one-on-one. The things that Allie mentioned with, it makes sense for Laguna, and I love that idea. I would recommend just testing it out for a year for Laguna. I love that idea. Also, in terms of just, well, I guess that's the point. Like, when I saw it as an agenda item, I wasn't clear whether it was going to be for the entire district or just for Laguna. And I love the idea. I think they do good work. I'm concerned about students that may not be first gen, and maybe that would be a question to Allie. Like, what about students that aren't first gen or a minority? That's been something, or low income, right? Because there's a lot of scholarships that are available through 10,000 Degrees. And they really it seems to me that they really pivot just towards that venue. And the thing, as a college and career coordinator, I'm concerned with is that scholarships are loading on to 10,000 Degrees as a ship to sail their scholarship. And then it's not reaching students and families because they're so focused on first gen, minority, low income. And that's what I've got. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker is Jennifer Duckhorn. Go ahead and.
Okay, thank you. You can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, no, my questions actually It seemed like the contract was really specific when it said they're focused on seniors. And I was curious, how many seniors are enrolled for the 21-22 school year? At the bottom of page 2 on item number 11, it says pay 10,000 degrees for service provided and to fund student scholarships according to the schedule noted below. And so I'm kind of a little confused. So for next school year, it's a little over 109,000 and then it goes up, but is a portion of that set aside for scholarships, or is this kind of for scholarships and then that's what the money's speaking to? I wasn't sure what the division was. I mean, at first I thought, okay, that's the contract for the services and that's the schedule for 3 years. But then when it speaks about the scholarships, I thought, well, is that a part of this $109,000 for next year? Anyway, so that I was curious about. And then also it says, there's a little asterisk says, please see the attached budget addendum for further details. And I didn't see that addendum. So should there be one? I would assume there should, because there's that asterisk. But anyway, I just was looking for additional information and clarity regarding the budget. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
And Ali, would you like to address any of the comments?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So to Leah's question, they'll serve all of our.
Ali, we're losing you. Can you stop your video?
Yeah. Awesome. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So to Leah's point, they will actually serve all of our seniors. They won't they won't pick and choose as far as what life circumstances. So they will serve all of our seniors. Jennifer's question was such a good one, and I totally forgot that part. Thank you for reminding me. This is another part of it that I love. So for every kid who graduates and stays a part of the 10,000 degrees their entire senior year, at the end, when they graduate, I think it's 3 years that we are paying, but it's done through 10,000 degrees, actually do give a scholarship to every kid who graduates with us, as long as they stay enrolled in post-secondary education.
Thanks, Ali. All right, we'll bring it back to the board and we'll go ahead and vote. So Jeannie?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Angie?
Aye.
And Kelly? Aye. All right, now we'll move on to action on items heard in closed session. Angie?
There was no action taken.
Thank you. And now reports. We will start with board member reports. Julie, do you have a report tonight?
No, I have nothing to report tonight.
How about Angie?
I'm just enjoying some seniors in Hawaii.
And Jeannie?
Nothing to report.
All right, and Kelly, my only report is that I do hope this is our last meeting until August, that everyone does have a nice summer and get some summer downtime and relaxation. So enjoy, everyone.
You were going to mention about Lori.
Oh, Lori, yes. And Lori isn't here tonight. She had a family commitment. Thanks, Jeannie, for the reminder. And now for Tony's report, superintendent report.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I have several things I wanted to clarify. There was some information I know in some of the local newspapers, and I think there was some confusion about some things. One thing is that I wanted to clarify the numbers of students we have at each of our schools. So as school is ending, we have 540 students who are at El Molino, 1,150 at Annalee, and 90 at Laguna. So just so people are clear on the numbers of students we had in each of our programs. And then I think there was some other confusion about why did the board make the decision to have students attend school in Sebastopol and not in Forestville. And that had to do with the fact that we cannot house all of our students at the Forestville campus without adding, I think it was 22 portables. So that would have been additional cost to the district in order to make that move. But in the scenario, the project that the board approved in November, it does allow the use of Laguna in the district office to accommodate all the students on the Annalee campus. So that's why the Sebastopol campus was chosen for this consolidation. And then there were some questions tonight about the renaming process. Just to clarify, the board has paused the renaming process. What that means is that there has been no final decision made to rename Annalee or to change colors or a mascot at this point. That's been paused. What has happened is that based on the recommendation from the student design team that was working on the Unity Committee, their recommendation was to use the name West County High School as a bridge name until such a time when the students returned in August. And then in August, there would be a survey done with the students that were attending the school to see where they stood, whether they felt that the name and the mascot and the colors had to be changed. So there's been no no final decision made on the rebranding. There's only been a placeholder. I shouldn't use that word. There's been a bridge name that has been selected, and that's the name of West County High School. And so when students return in August, we will be using the West County High School name so that all students can come to a new school and be together on that quote new school. So that the reason that you've seen that there's been a new logo that has been, and we do have a copy of the new logo. I don't know if anybody wants to see that, but the new logo has come from our athletic directors and coaches. And the new colors, the gray and white that is being used, has come from the coaches and the athletic directors. And the reason that is being used and proposed is because it allows for less cost to be spent for these bridge uniforms for fall sports. So that's where that came from. That wasn't something that the board voted on. That was something that came directly from the athletic directors and the coaches as a least expensive and an efficient way to allow our students to have uniforms with a bridge name on it versus continue to use the Annalee name until a decision can be made. So I just wanted to clarify that piece. In terms of what's happened so far, fall uniforms have been ordered or in process using that bridge logo and colors. And Varsity Brands is working with us, and they are, as part of our contract with them, they are providing free banners to be used at the beginning of the school year with the West County name on it, so that can be used until such a time, as I said earlier, that the students can make the decision as to whether or not the name and the color and the mascot need to be changed. There was a question about local vendors. The contract with Varsity Brands states that local vendors would bid each or can bid on each of the individual projects. And then if Varsity Brands can match what the local vendors are proposing, then Varsity Brands would get the contract. Otherwise, we are allowed to use local vendors for some of those contracts. Let's see. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we are in process of creating, or what am I trying to say? Developing, that's a better word, developing orientation for students for the fall. And the administrative team at West County High has been hard at work working with Mike Rohn, who's the student activities director. And they are developing an incredible orientation that will take place on August 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th for our students. What we're also looking into transportation for that orientation to see if we can provide transportation for our students and families that live out along the river area. And that would be in addition to the transportation that we're already looking at and will provide for students in the fall. I think there was a question about the cost. So the cost for the bridge uniforms for all fall sports, including band, is estimated to be about $20,000 for those bridge uniforms. So not as much as the $175,000 that we had talked about originally, because that's the estimate for completely new uniforms. But that will, like I said before, that has not yet been determined, and that will be determined in the fall once the students return. There was one other thing I wanted to mention, and I received a letter this week from the Sonoma County Office of Education clarifying the unification study timeline. So what's happened in terms of the unification study is that SCO is beginning the process of going out for an RFP to find a vendor to do the study. They anticipate that they will have a vendor by the end of June. And then in their letter, what they state is it will take 16 to 18 months from the time they get the vendor in order for the study to be completed. Once the study is completed, then the results of that study need to be disseminated to all of the school districts, and decisions need to be made by their boards as to whether or not they're wanting to follow the findings of the study. So we're looking at some time, probably closer to the 23-24 school year by the time the unification study results could be implemented. So I think that is all for my report tonight.
Thank you, Tony. And now we will move on to our education services action items. So first item is consideration of approval of the 21-24 local control accountability plan. And can I get a motion for that item, please?
I move that we approve the 2021-24 local, 3 years, sorry, local control accountability plan.
And a second.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Oh, I think Jeannie got it first. Jolie, sorry. And then go ahead, Tony.
So at our last board meeting on the 9th, I made the presentation of the local control accountability plan. So I wasn't planning to make a new presentation tonight. It's the same plan as was presented at that board meeting. And there are 3 items that are involved in this LCAP. So the first thing that comes in the LCAP is the budget overview for parents. That's one piece. The second piece is the annual update. And the third piece is the new 3-year plan for next year. So tonight, it comes to the board for approval. This approval is filed the same night and in conjunction with the budget that you will hear from in one of our future items.
Thank you, Tony. And any public comment on this item? And again, reminder, please raise your hand because once we start taking speakers, we will not add them at the end.
You have one hand raised.
Okay, go ahead and bring her in and she can have the full 3 minutes.
Well, Leah, what do you have the floor?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to, in terms of, no offense, Tony, but I just want to mention, because of course it's not, the LCAP right now is not in my vision, nor would it be in our community's vision and parents. I know you presented it last board meeting, which was a bit ago. It was a while ago. So I wish you could have, I know you're busy. I know everyone's busy. We're all busy, but it would have been great to see kind of like a little bit of a overview, or if you have some slides to share and remind the community, that would be great. And I'm looking forward to being in person. Thank you.
Yeah, and Leah, that meeting was 2 weeks ago, actually, that we went over the LCAP in detail, and that's per the education code. This is how the process works. We have one meeting, and that's why we actually have 2 meetings in June, because the first meeting is to present the LCAP in detail, so that the community does have a chance to sit with that information and comment. And then this meeting is really meant just for us to approve it. So that is done intentionally to allow for community input on that item. So that was, again, done in detail in our meeting 2 weeks ago.
Kelly, it's actually the full report, and
it's in there. I know, but I just meant because it wasn't presented here in like PowerPoint in detail form, but that, yeah. And
it's certainly there for Leah to go and look at.
Just a FYI, we record all of our board meetings. They're available on YouTube at any time. So please.
Anyone who's interested could go to that last board meeting as well and review those.
It's also posted. Isn't it also posted on the website?
Yes.
Yeah.
But thank you for your comment. But I wanted you to know, and the public to know, that was, the presentation was made.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was our one public comment on that item. Yes. All right, so we'll bring it back to the board. Any clarifying questions or comments from the board?
Julie.
I just wanted to ask on the district-wide professional development, does that include time for teachers to analyze and look at test scores?
Yes, it does. There are specifically funds set aside for development of common assessments, and that includes looking at the data.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Julie. Any other questions from the board or comments? All right, let's go ahead and vote. Jeannie?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Angie?
Aye.
Kelly? Aye. All right, and now we'll move on to item 2, which is consideration of approval 21-22 local control accountability plan addendum. And can I get a motion for that item?
So moved.
And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Angie. And do you want to go ahead with your overview of this item, Tony?
This item was also presented at the June 9th board meeting in more depth. Part of the LCAP is also required this federal addendum. The federal addendum covers the funds received from the federal government. It's Title I, Title II, and Title III. What's included in this documentation for this item is also the federal addendum that's been prepared by the Sonoma County Office of Education for Title III, which you're going to hopefully approve in the next item. We are in a consortium for Title III funds because we don't receive enough funds to be on our own for Title III. So we're in a consortium with the Sonoma County Office of Education on that item. So what's included is our federal addendum along with their federal addendum that includes us for the Title III. And like I said, these were presented at the last board meeting and they're here for your approval tonight.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Any public comment on this item? No public comment. I'll bring it back to the board. Any comments or questions from the board on this item? All right, we will go ahead and vote. Jeannie?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Angie?
Aye.
Kelly? Aye. All right, our next item is consideration of approval of Elementary and Secondary Education Act, Title III, Part A, English Learners Student Program Consortium for the 21-22 school year. And can I get a motion on this item?
So moved.
Thanks, Jolie. And a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jeannie. And go ahead, Tony.
So I made mention of this item in the previous item. This is specifically for our Title III funds, and this is for next school year. We do not receive enough Title III funds for us to get those funds on our own. So us and several other school districts in the county join with the Sonoma County Office of Education, who has a consortium, and they receive the funds, and then the funds are given out to each of the school districts. So this is a memorandum of understanding to be in the consortium with SCO for our Title III funds for next school year.
Okay, thank you very much. Any public comment on this item?
Yes, you have a couple comments.
All right, looks like we have two people who would like to make public comment. Is the board comfortable with giving those speakers their full time? Okay, let's go ahead and bring them in.
Mary Bracken, followed by Adam Parks. Mary, you have the floor, and I'll bring everything else in a second.
Good evening.
There you go.
And thank you for the work on the LCAP to the El Molino, Annalee, Laguna staff, and the parents who participated, as well as community members. Given that we are in this COVID time and we're sheltered in place and we're only partially seeing each other live, I would like to implore the school board to examine next year's renewal of the LCAP and make a furtive effort to go into the community prior to just the two board meetings, so that the community input could be very, very authentically there in the LCAP process. Thank you.
Interesting.
Thank you. Next speaker is Adam Parks.
Good evening. I won't purport to know a whole lot about this, but I've been around long enough now to know when the topic of the consortium comes up, it catches my attention. In particular, we've talked many, many times about the massive expense that this involves on our budget under special services. That's been a topic of many, many meetings trying to understand the special services budget and why it takes up so much of our budgetary dollars. In this time and age of consolidating and discussions over how this board is spending money, et cetera, I hope that there is some consideration given to making sure this is not a rubber stamp. I realize time is precious and you guys have a lot to do to get ready for next year. You have a lot of community support for getting ready for next year. But I hope that there's been some time spent exploring other alternatives and where we can move some dollars around in this, because it takes up a great percentage of our budget. So I'm hoping that that's been done. It certainly hasn't been really described. I listened 2 weeks ago and I didn't comment on it earlier because I was hoping to get more information on that, but I understand the process and I understand the 2-week interval. These meetings are for the board, not for the public. And I think that gets missed a lot of times. So I appreciate what you're doing, but this has been a sticking point for a long time. And so it might bear a little more explanation into what research has been done to save some money in this area. Thanks.
Yeah, can you clarify, Tony? I think what Adam was referencing was a special education consortium, which this is a little bit different. So
yeah, this is different. I think there's misunderstanding about what the consortium we're talking about. He was referring to the special education consortium that we're the lead district in. And this consortium that we're referring to here is a consortium with the Sonoma County Office of Education. They're the lead agent and they receive the money, and we work with them to provide services for our English language learners, not for our special education. So it's actually two totally different things. So I apologize if there was a misunderstanding there.
And can you talk a little bit about the idea of being a part of a consortium is to reduce the overall cost of the services versus if we went out for these services on our own, correct?
Correct. Yeah. The Special Education Consortium actually allows us to get services that we need for a reduced cost, much less than it would cost us if we went out for these services by ourselves. In addition to that, we have looked several times over the past 3 years at disbanding or at least exiting from the consortium. And it actually would cost us more money to exit from the consortium. I think we get, Ann can probably answer this, but I think we received close to $200,000 in ongoing cost that we saved by being the lead agency in the consortium. Is that right?
Just as a point of comparison, because I've actually done this calculation, SCO for the coming year is charging $62,000 per special education student in their program. The average cost of an SDC student served by the consortium is $37,000 a year. Yep. So that is a substantial savings for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you're referencing SCO because it gets a little confusing. You're referencing SCO there because they operate their own special education services separately from our consortium, which is different from the Spanish one, the English learners student program that we're talking about right now. Thank you. Yeah.
The SCO special education students are generally pretty severe, and it's a program that it would not be feasible for our consortium to offer because it's very specialized.
Thank you. No, I feel like it just gets confusing because there's a lot of different consortiums and different people operate them. And yes, so thank you. All right, bringing it back to the board, any questions or comments from the board? All right, let's go ahead and vote. Jeannie?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Angie?
Aye.
And Kelly? Aye. All right, now we'll move on to consideration of approval resolution 26, June 2020-21, return to full schedule in-person instruction for the beginning of 21-22 school year. Motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Angie. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie and Tony.
Yeah, so as we all know, our students have been out of full in-person learning since March of 2020. It was a long time. We were able in April, board passed a resolution to bring our students back to a hybrid schedule. And based on the current safety conditions, our governor has announced that the economy is now fully reopened, and that was of June 15th. We anticipate that the conditions will continue to get better, and we believe that we will be able to bring our students back, and our intention is hopefully to bring our students back to full schedule in-person instruction beginning in August of the 2021 school year. So we wanted to bring this before the board for your approval. I did want to also mention that there was a comment, I think, by one of our speakers tonight about the mask mandate. We, as a public school system, we must follow the public health guidelines. We are not at liberty to not follow those guidelines. We must follow the guidelines as outlined by public health. So the most recent guidelines that have come out have said that masks are not required, except in certain cases. And one of those cases is indoors. I'm reading from the document that I received. Masks are required indoors in K-12 schools, childcare, and other youth settings. It does say that there may be more updated guidance coming from the CDC. But as of right now, if we were to start school now, our students could come back, but the regulation says that indoors, that students and staff would need to be masked, whether they are vaccinated or not at this point. But like I said, that could change. In other cases, I think you've heard the masks are required only on unvaccinated people. But the latest guidance right now is that in schools, masks would be required. But as I said, those guidelines could be updated as we move through the summer. So we'll know more about that as we get farther into the summer.
And Tony, am I correct in saying, and if we choose to not follow public health guidelines, we stand to lose funding.
We do.
Yeah.
And it leaves us open to lawsuits as well. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tony. Do we have any comments from the public on this item? Okay, I don't see any. I'll bring it back to the board. Any questions or comments from the board on this resolution? Julie?
I just had a question about potential variants and making sure that we continue to be ready to handle possible increase in cases, because I know that I was just listening to the news that new Delta variant is kind of hitting kids very hard. So I'm just concerned about being ready to handle that.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you we have enough PPE to last us the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think we just had that conversation at the county yesterday too. We have a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot of PPE.
We have test kits too.
Yeah.
We have thousands of testing kits. We have thousands of pieces of PPE, from masks to gloves to face shields to plexiglass. We have not gotten rid of anything. We have cleaning supplies for a really long time.
Well, and we can always make adjustments as we go, right? Based on.
Well, yeah, if the county makes adjustments, then we will have to make adjustments.
Right. Yeah.
And speaking as a parent, I'm very excited to have my children back in full-time school. It will be very, very nice.
Beneficial for all.
Yeah, it'll be good for everyone on many levels. All right, let's go ahead and vote. Jeannie.
Aye.
Angie.
Aye.
Julie.
Aye.
And Kelly. Aye. All right, next item is not a action item. This is a discussion that kind of goes along with the resolution that we just passed about returning to in-person education, discussing returning into in-person board meetings. Do you want to introduce this, Tony, or
Yeah. Yes. So as you said, it kind of goes hand in hand with the previous item. The governor, back in March of 2020, the governor passed an executive order that allowed flexibility in the Brown Act to allow us to have these meetings, remotely, and to have people, participate remotely. On June 11th, of this year, he issued another executive order that says that the expiration of that waiver to the Brown Act will continue only through September 30th. So before September 30th, the board will, after September 30th, the board would have no choice but to move back to in-person meetings. But you can certainly go back before then. But the board and the community would need to follow the guidelines that are put out by CDC, in which case we would need to wear masks because we would be indoors. And the recommendation that I have from legal is that board meetings are considered K-12 environments. And so the recommendation is that those in-person board meetings, masks would be required from all participants for the board meeting. Now, mind you, this is also the guidance right now, and the guidance could change, like we said previously, over the next month or so.
All right, I will bring it back to the board for discussion. Any thoughts, input around timeline for when we will return to in-person meetings? Julie? Go ahead, Julie.
Is there a limit of how many people can be in the room at a in-person board meeting?
I have
haven't seen the latest update. Jenny, do you know?
Give me a hot minute and I'll find out.
Yeah, in the new information that's come out, there hasn't been any statement about a limit in terms of capacity of a room. All of the guidance I've seen says there need to be masks. So maybe Jenny can look that up really quickly.
Any other questions?
That was going to be my question as well. My other question would be is if and when we do go back to in-person meetings, based on the unfortunate situation we find ourselves in, are we going to have some security present?
I think one of the other, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you, Angie? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tony.
I was just going to say that some of the other conversations that have happened around other school districts are that by doing it remotely like this via Zoom, we get a lot of participation that we probably wouldn't get if it were in person. And is there a way to still allow for that participation? Because before we didn't televise or record our board meetings. Mm-hmm. So there might also be some other things that we can do to still get the participation that we're getting now.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely like to see that no matter when we decide to come back to in-person, that we still keep some type of online presence, because I think it does make the meeting more accessible to people. I mean, oftentimes, people work different schedules or just life is busy. And so I know I've been able to attend a lot more public meetings because I've just been able to pop on Zoom and not, have to go in person. So I definitely would love to see that we keep that going at some level.
So with respect to gatherings right now, still following the prior rules as it would relate to like concert venues, we're categorized in that. So right now we would still require masks, and we would be having some level of limited capacity. Mm-hmm. Depending on where it was located would depend on how many people we could have there. Mm-hmm. And again, that is likely to change. Yeah. By the time we are in August when we have in-person meetings. So we will just continue to pay attention to it. Right now, it's just a little ambiguous because we're being asked to follow the same rules as if it were an indoor concert venue, which is frustrating.
Mm-hmm. And Jenny, is there options, just thinking of facilities standpoint? I mean, if we do find ourselves, from where I sit, if we're coming back to full in-person education every day, I think I would say we have to set our sights on August, just from my perspective, because it feels a little awkward to have our kids back in school full time and for us not to be meeting in person, just in my opinion. Is there an opportunity that maybe we look at our facilities, because we have more space in, say, like, the theater than we do in the library. So we might be able to have, more people there to attend the meeting than if we would meet in the library, which, just has limited, because we just have, it's not.
Well, and maybe better spacing too, Kelly.
That's what I mean. Like, we'd be able to distance more people and fit more people. Would that be an option?
Yes. It would probably be a preference for us from the technology side, as you would want us to continue to broadcast, and we have better sound system capabilities in our theaters, right? To mic everybody up, because if you're broadcasting where we're all in the same room, we need to be mic'd up for the audience to hear us. And then I would obviously want some direction on how much interaction would be having between like a YouTube broadcast and public comment. We have a very busy summer over here in the MOT world, and preparing for August seems like it's far away, but in our world, August is already here because we're doing a 4-week look ahead. So I would need really clear direction on what the interaction you would want for broadcast, and if you would want public comments to be able to come in virtually, especially if we have capacity limitations.
Yeah, and I think, Jenny, I mean, I honestly would put that question back to staff because some of that is just around the guidelines of Brown Act. I don't know when we go back to like a regular Brown Act, you know, regulations around in-person meetings, I don't know that we can take public comment virtually. I think people can watch the meeting, like, you know, the Board of Supervisors. I mean, many people pre-COVID televised their meetings, but they weren't interactive in the way that they are right now. So I'm not sure that they can be interactive virtual meetings unless there's changes made permanently to Brown Act. Which might not be a bad idea, thinking about meeting accessibility, but that's not up to in our purview. Yeah. So I think when I say I would like it to be virtual, I'm talking just about the, you know, being able to visually see and participate in the meeting that way. I don't know that we'd be able to do public comment. And I see Tony nodding her head, so I feel like I'm on to something around that.
Yes,
you are. Yeah.
That's been the conversation with superintendents that and with them coming back is that they would broadcast the meeting, but public comment would need to take place in person.
Yeah.
And then the other question or request that I would have is, I know we've traditionally gone back and forth between campuses for the board meetings, and I understand the accessibility factor for that. But from a technology standpoint and setting it up for continuing technology, we would greatly appreciate having one location for future board meetings. And we're site agnostic is with respect to that, but the amount of work that it takes to just set up a regular board meeting is probably an hour. The amount of time it's going to take us to set up a broadcast meeting is going to be longer than that, because we do break it down after the board meeting. So I'm just asking so that we're not constantly going back and forth, if we can designate a location or 2 locations so that we can set those up and predetermine where we're going to be. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and I know nobody can see it back here, but I have 4 screens up right now, and I'm working on 2 different computers. And that's just managing it virtually. It's a lot.
We hear that. So I guess any thoughts? I mean, 2 different pieces of discussion are, you know, one piece is, do we want to maintain some virtual presence ongoing? And then the other piece is the timeline I've kind of put out there around, you know, aligning with that, going back to our in-person education with school. What are thoughts from other board members around how we might approach that?
Also, as an FYI, I have reached out to the video production department, Randy specifically, to see if this could be an opportunity where our students could participate in helping to broadcast our board meetings from like a video production perspective. So I thought it would be a nice way to bridge those things. So he was extremely responsive.
Awesome.
Well, I agree with you, Kelly. I think we probably should start back in August if the rest of the board is interested in doing so. Again, I'm going to broach the question of whether or not we have some security of some sort. I know personally, in the past, it's been needed and was welcomed when we had it. So I think that's something we need to think about, unfortunately. And also, I concur with Jenny. If we can make it easier on our technology staff with a single location, if at all possible, I think that might be a really great idea to avoid the issue of them having to spend so much time tearing down, setting up, or resetting up, etc. of these, and we all know that these technology systems can be finicky when they're messed with a lot. So just some thoughts.
Angie, Julie, any comments or thoughts?
I think Tony kind of read my mind when she started elaborating. It was kind of a lot of what along the lines I was thinking. I've yet to participate in an in-person meeting. So, I mean,
it's not crazy.
The time I have spent with you guys in person. So I'm excited to do that. I have the concern around, it being accessible, because I think, we've learned a lot from this process, but, I know we're constrained to, Brown Act rules and stuff like that. So I think, the more access we can give the community so that, people are in the know. It seems to be something that kind of historically, maybe people weren't really as much in the know until issues were pressing or decisions or things were being done that people weren't aware of. So I think the more proactive we can be, I think the better this process can be. Jenny, you were talking about the auditorium at Annalee?
Annalee, El Molino's got a beautiful auditorium that I would really like to use.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of I don't know, seating and spacing and all that, logistics. Yeah.
We have about 900 seats at Annalee between the main and upper floor, and 298 seats at El Molino. And we would, according to the current social distancing guidelines, we'd be required to do 6 feet between people. Mm-hmm. But it's unclear if those will metamorphose into new guidelines.
And isn't it like 50%?
There's different requirements right now for if your event is a vaccinated event versus a non-vaccinated event. So, and it'd be really interesting if we could host board meetings outside, because then
anyone can come.
I just did that. I just said it out loud.
Maybe we start meeting in the stadium.
Tony, is there rules about the mask? Like when you're inside, can you take it off to speak? Or, because I know, just even traveling with our family or being in a restaurant, when you have your mask on, it is so hard to understand or hear. It just really complicates things. So that's my only other concern, is just that we're able to, effectively communicate.
It's one of the points of why we wear a mask, unfortunately, is because when we speak, or when some people speak, there's maybe some moisture. I don't know how to say it. You might.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all mic'd, just so you know, Angie, and Jolie, you've never met in person. I mean, we do have mics set up for each of us. I mean, it is hopefully even with the mask, with a microphone, the projection would be okay. We're not just projecting our voices, And
if we're in the auditorium, we'd likely go to lapel mics.
Ooh, fancy. Well, Julie, any comments on the date? August, or any comments on any of the items around virtual meetings?
I'm just trying to wrap my head around that Jeannie feels like we need security. That didn't even enter my mind, and I'm upset by that whole even thought, honestly.
Me too.
Well, I know there's already been talk about organizing. Yeah, I tread on this lightly because I think it's public speech, and I want to honor that. And I'm not assuming that anyone would do anything harmful. And I guess there's the prevention component too. I guess you never know. I don't know. Well, so it sounds like we're all in agreement that August is a good earmark for timeline for in-person meetings. I get the consensus that everyone is, is for virtual meetings. I mean, I feel like for me, virtual, a component of the meeting in addition to the personal meetings. I would love for staff to maybe come back. I guess maybe August, we just pick a site. I I just hesitate to, it would be nice to keep, we are still going to have classes at both sites. It would be nice to be able to keep our board meetings at both sites if it's not going to be totally overwhelming. I know I hear you, Jenny. So,
but I'm more thinking like designate a location. We typically have them in the library. The library at Annalee is too small to really host anyone in any type of social distancing setting. So if we can designate that we will be using the theaters at both campuses, just understanding that the capacity at the Sebastopol campus is significantly bigger than the capacity at the Forestville campus.
So would you be able to give us numbers on that though? Because I think for me, I mean, I just would love to see us say the theaters. We maintain both campuses for our meetings because we historically have always done that. And we're still going to have classes at both campuses. So that seems to make sense. And I guess what might get confusing in this weird interim spot is that if we have different capacities at both, like, well, this board meeting, we can only have 50 people. And at this board meeting, we can have 200 people. So I guess for me, I would love clarity. I mean, maybe for August, we go with what's bigger, just because we might still be in stricter, COVID guidelines. And then September, we could think about El Molino site, and unless it gets too restrictive where like we're only going to have be able to have 30 people, I mean, then maybe we reconsider in August and think about a different strategy. But maybe that would work, is focusing on Annalee for September, August, and then Elmo for the Elmo site for September. Does that work for the board?
And just to give you those numbers, based on the existing capacity at the Forestville campus, the theater would be 99 people. And based on the current guidelines for an unvaccinated event. And then it would be 297 at the Sebastopol campus. And that, with the caveat that previously it was capped at 50 people. So I don't know that. I briefly read through the regulation for the current regulation for indoor large scale events. So.
Well, and I think we could just have the flexibility too. I mean, during agenda setting, I mean, if the board is okay with this as we're setting the agenda, I mean, if the guidelines change and get stricter, then, I mean, I think we can err on the side of trying to have site diversity, unless we're going to end up so limited in the amount of people who can attend that it just doesn't make sense. But to me, our meetings, our last few meetings, like we've had 70-ish, including us, 80 people at. So I think the 90, what did you say, 95 people? 99 cap seems doable for the El Molino site.
Correct. And just so you know, the panelists are included in the total count. So
yeah. And I was including that. I think now we're at 70 right now with all of us.
We do have a contingency of people that you guys don't see that I'm watching. We have 20 viewers on YouTube right now.
Okay. All right. Well, it would be close, but maybe by September it might be different anyways. Who knows where we'll be? It might be better. It might be worse, depending on how things.
Right.
We just never know. So we have to be flexible. All right. Well, does this give staff direction then? It sounds like, and then we'll open it up for public comment, but it sounds like where we're at right now is August meetings. We'll alternate sites. We'll start with Annalee, and then hopefully by September we'll be in an even less restricted environment, and we can have more people, and we'll go Elmo, and then we'll keep alternating, and we'll be at the theaters. So it makes it easier on Jenny and staff to be able to set those up, and
we'll broadcast,
which I think we'll have to be really clear, Jenny, when you post the agendas, when we make this shift, just because I think people are going to be really confused when they log into the broadcast, that they're not going to be able to make public comments. So I think it'll be good on the agenda page where you have board agendas being really big. If you want to make public comment, you need to come in person. We are transitioning to
the only other thing I would ask for clarification on, would we want to pre-designate who can attend, like by saying please fill out this form and have kind of like
how are we going to determine like
a guest list, or are we going to have somebody at the door checking numbers,
Yeah, I think you just.
I was going to ask the same thing. How do we say, okay, cut it off?
Just like the numbers. I mean, I think it's just first come, first serve, and and
they have to produce a mask.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to have a mask, and then you click the number, and then when we get to the total capacity, then we cut it off, and that's just how it has to work. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we have a couple people from the public who would like to make comments. So if anyone wants to make comment on this item, please go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll give it a second. And it looks like we have 5 speakers. Do I want to give everyone with the 5 speakers 2 minutes? Board?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone?
2 minutes.
All right. Let's go ahead and bring them in.
First speaker, Gillian Hayes. Second speaker, Tara Del Drago. Third speaker, Kara Mendez, followed by Jesseline Mills. And last speaker is Jennifer Duckhorn. Gillian, you have the floor, and then I'll start all the stuff in this background.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Board and staff, please do your research. The Brown Act does not preclude online participation in public meetings. You can do an in-person meeting and Zoom at the same time, just like I'm doing with my government job starting in July. You cannot predetermine a guest list. That is a Brown Act violation. So maybe think about having a Zoom access for public comments. Maybe think about having an overflow screen outside, like, some churches or city council meetings do. Don't cut the public off. We want to be involved. Make sure that we have the ability to do so. Please follow the Board of Supervisors. They're already meeting in person. Follow the Santa Rosa City Council. They're already meeting in person. You guys need to come get with the times. We want to see your face. We want to tell you how we feel as a community, as children attending the schools that you are supposed to be overseeing. We want to tell you face to face how we feel. Security, really, Jeannie? You want to spend more of my kids' money in this district on security? I'm just really curious. What unfortunate situation, Jeannie, requires you to spend more money that belongs to our kids' education on security? I just think that's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. The location, again, I understand that sometimes it might take a little more IT help and setup, but get it set up at both sites, rotate. That's the way that you get the most involvement and the best access. We don't want to be doing this online anymore. For those that do need to have it online and want the access, great. But for those of us that have been begging you for in-person meetings, you need to follow suit with what the rest of the county's doing. If you're unclear about the guidelines, check with Cal OSHA, check with the Department of Public Health, and do your research. You can't screen the meetings according to K-12 and concert events. That's not correct. You need to check with the state, follow CDC, Cal OSHA, and Public Health, and get your ducks in a row. And you're right, Kelly, they'll probably change and loosen up by the time the first meeting starts anyways. So please, in person, we're ready to see you face to face.
Thanks for your comments. Next speaker is Tara Del Drago.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Gillian. You pretty much took the words out of my mouth. It's imperative, absolutely. And I think that 99 people at El Molino, I understand, but also take in mind that the teachers also had to do this all year with Zooming and being in person. So maybe put some of that COVID money towards helping with the extra IT to make it happen. So I think everybody does need to be involved. I think that COVID has made it easier for more people to be involved that can't normally go, but there are a whole lot of us that will be there face to face, so you can actually see not only the expressions in our eyes, but the kids' faces. Again, this is about the kids. Super important that they get their voices heard, but not only that, you get to see the expressions when you crush their dreams on their faces. So it needs to be at both campuses, absolutely. That is an absolute must. So thank you, Gillian, again for saying what you did. And there are ways to make it happen. It needs to happen both ways, and use that money as it's allocated to make it happen. Thank you.
Next speaker, oh, I just lost somebody. Jessie Mills.
Hi again, Lee Mills here. I am echoing everything that everyone just said before me. I think it's imperative that we have in-person meetings. If there's going to be a capacity, do Zoom also. I'm doing Zoom in addition to in-person. I think is a great benefit. It gives people the opportunity to speak up who cannot be there for whatever reason. I also think spending money on security is absolutely insane. Excuse my child speaking. I think that money could be spent on the kids, and it's really unfortunate that the board feels threatened by the public right now with everything going on, that they feel they need security. This is a high school district. We should not need security. I think it also is imperative that these meetings occur at both school sites. The board's already cutting education to West County kids, or access to education. It would be a shame if the board also cut the community's ability to be heard at these meetings by only holding them at one location. So I think for both the Sebastopol people's benefit as well as the Far West County people's benefit, the board should have meetings at alternating locations, El Molino and Amalie campuses. So please follow the guidelines. If it's acceptable at the time, which it is right now, then have that board meeting in person. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker is Jennifer Duckhorn.
Okay. I just wanted to say that having the meetings in person, I think, is of greater benefit for everyone, actually. And the other thing too is, if there could be a way to perhaps do have a screen outside so that people could watch the meeting, and when somebody has a question, to be able to allow that individual to circulate into the room, and ask the question in person, like somehow have, people, when they ask the question and they get their answer, whatnot, then they perhaps maybe leave the inside room or, the gym, wherever you guys have it, or the theater. Anyway, and then others can come in, so that they have the opportunity to speak directly to you. And also, I know, Jenny, it's a lot of work to do what you're doing. You're doing a great job, but if you guys can continue on so people can Zoom in, like many people who are Zooming in, they've got their kids in tow, and we don't want to have parents have to leave their kids at home alone in order to share their concerns with the district and the board. Anyway, but thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Last speaker is Leah Woody.
Hi. Yeah, I just want to reiterate essentially what Ms. Duckhorn mentioned. I do feel it's imperative that the board, it almost is like a good faith thing, like we as teachers and staff went back to school and on campus. And the fact that we're having a discussion that you've already watched the staff and the teachers and everyone handle is I want the board to be trusted. We all want the board to be trusted. We want to be in that place. Jeannie, I understand your concerns. I had a parent actually share that same concern about security. I don't share that as much as you do. And I talked to the parent a lot about it. And we came to an understanding because she was fearful for her child's safety. And there are some students that are feeling that way, right? As the board should suspect and address. But what I'm hoping is that, and I know that admin, our wonderful admin, are meeting. I just saw them on Elmo's campus today. What I'm hoping is that we can send out, you've discussed the name change. I'm hoping that Parent Square can just go to that name change that
Thank
we
you
have,
for your comments, Leah.
that Holder Place.
Great, thank you. I'll bring it back to the board. And just to clarify, because it seems like maybe a couple of the speakers missed our discussion based on some of the comments that were made. The direction we did just give the superintendent is that we will be going back to in-person board meetings in August. Those meetings will be both, in-person and virtual, and they will be at both sites. So just to clarify, because based on the comments, it seems like some folks may have missed portions of our discussion. So I just wanted to be really clear that everyone understands the direction that we're giving administration to move forward with. And I will also reiterate, I know Jenny can be very creative and resourceful, and I'm sure we'll hopefully think of different avenues to make the meetings as engaging as they possibly can, given some of the restrictions that we're under. I mean, you always are very, very resourceful and creative, Jenny. So I know that
I'm in the middle of drafting an email.
Exactly. I know she's already working on it. That's
figure it out. I did want to ask or make a clarifying comment. I think Ms. Hayes had mentioned that we shouldn't be following the guidance with respect to concert venues. We're required to follow that guidance. That's the guidance that we've been told to follow. So until which time we're told to follow different guidance, unfortunately, we are in this weird conundrum of being considered a concert. I don't agree with it, and I think it's silly, but that's what the rules that we are following. I certainly hope that the rules and processes change so that we can have more people. But while one of the members of the public was speaking about overflow areas, if we are hosting them on like the Forestville campus, the theater is much smaller, but the library could be an overflow location, and we do have broadcasting capabilities there. So those are the things that we're thinking about from a logistical standpoint. Broadcasting it out to everywhere is going to be a little challenging for us to figure out. We do have a pretty creative tech team that has been deployed since March, instituting creative technology across the board. And I feel pretty proud of what we've been able to accomplish just to deal with distance learning. So I have no concerns that we'll be able to figure it out. It's just going to the drawing board and seeing how we can make it all happen. So we might be a little rough the first couple of meetings, but it's been rough few years anyway.
Yeah, we'll make it through. We always do, one way or the other. All right, I am going to move forward then from this item. I think, Tony, do you have any questions about the direction we just gave you? Are you clear? Okay, thank you. So we will move forward with our first business services item, which is consideration of approval of the 21-22 budget. Can I get an action on this item?
I move that we approve the 2021-22 budget.
And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie. And let's turn it over to Anne for this item.
Hey, I'm going to turn it over to Katrina Howard, our consultant who actually prepared the budget. She has a very brief presentation highlighting the changes that we've made since the initial presentation of the preliminary budget to the board 2 weeks ago. Katrina, thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Can I recommend that everybody closes their video and mutes themselves so we can see her presentation?
Okay. Board and superintendent. We just wanted to do a brief presentation because we've made a couple minor adjustments from the budget you looked at. And so Jenny's doing the presentation since, you know, I'm from afar. We don't want my technology problems to become yours. Okay, so Jenny, if you want to go ahead and advance 2 slides. Okay, so this is the same snapshot, and this is board. This is in your packet. I'm sorry, your packets weren't page numbered. It's behind the green piece of paper. This is looking at your general fund. So column B that you see here is the budget we brought to you on June 9th. And column C is the budget that is being brought to you for adoption. And I just want to point out and explain what the big movement numbers are, because once you hear, I think it'll give you a level of comfort.
Jenny, can you make it just a bit bigger?
I can't. I cannot make it bigger.
I'm sorry. I probably should have broken it up for you a little bit more.
It's okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Jeannie, if you drag the boxes all the way to the right, it will limit the people on our side that you're seeing, and then it will make this screen bigger.
I just did that. Didn't work.
Oh, it's working on
Okay.
mine.
So I'll just talk out loud what the changes are, because there's actually only 1, 2, 3 changes between the preliminary budget and the budget for adoption. Okay. And 2 of the changes are caused by, there you go. 2 of the changes are caused by the way we account for the COVID money. So in looking at the screen, and here I am pointing at my screen, like you can see that. Under federal revenues, you can see that it increased by $152,000. Well, yes, thank you, Jenny. So that increase, I made a note to the side. It says booked ESSER funds to cover cafeteria fund transfer. Well, the district has been making a transfer in addition to its normal transfer into the cafeteria fund to help offset the revenue loss. And so that money is coming from the COVID relief funds, which is in turn used to offset some of the issues or problems or shortfalls the district is encountering with COVID. In this case, the shortfall to the cafeteria fund. So the way you have to book it is you have to actually book the income, and then down in the bottom section, like line 35, you can see that it's a negative number, but that's booking out the money to the cafeteria fund, because the cafeteria fund is not accounted for in the general fund. That way, it's an accounting mechanism that stays in its own fund, and it can just draw from the general fund if the board authorizes that to cover a shortfall. So the first number is an increase to federal income, COVID income, to cover the transfer to the cafeteria. That's one of the 3 changes. The second change is the next line, where you see I've decreased the state revenue. I decreased it by a lot, $325,000. This is because you can't carry over COVID fund as a fund balance if you don't use it. So we had booked it, this particular COVID fund, it's for in-person instruction. We booked that total program in the preliminary budget, and we booked out the expenditures as a placeholder, knowing that it wasn't going to be used until the following year. As we prepared the multi-year projection, it became evident that it could not be recorded as a placeholder in current year, even though we know the amount. So I had to remove both the income and the expense line, and we'll speak to this for just a moment. The COVID funds, if they're not spent in current year, they are in 21-22. They are planned to be spent in 22-23 to still support that, to provide that program support that the superintendent outlined in the Extended Learning Opportunities Plan and part of the in-person instruction grant, again, to help offset the things that came about because of COVID. The other thing, and this is really significant, is on line 22 in the middle of the page where it says employee benefits, you see an increase of $95,000. This is something beyond the control of the district. The rates for workers' compensation program, that is the rate per dollar So the way you pay your workers' comp insurance premiums are for every dollar of payroll you pay a certain percent off to workers' comp premiums. And then that's your buy-in to the workers' compensation program. The premiums came out, I believe it was June 10th, and they were higher than we anticipated. So since the budget was in preliminary stage and not finally prepared for you, we went ahead and incorporated it because that's almost $100,000 and it's a significant cost. When we put all that together, if you go to the very bottom of the page, you can see that we were looking at a deficit of $493,000 at preliminary budget. With all those little changes, all those three major changes, it moves to $494,000. So not a huge shift overall, but some important shifts in the middle of the budget. So we thought it was important enough, as Ann and I discussed it, that we at least explained that to you and made sure you had an opportunity to ask questions about that. Jenny, the next page. So what does that mean for fund balance? So this is simply the second page. Again, in your bigger full board packet, it's right behind the green page. You can see that the beginning balance changed slightly. It changed slightly because 2021 budget is still active. You know, we're still in the school year. So there were a couple minor changes, but it increased the beginning balance to put against, to calculate in the 21-22. When you come down, you can see that there's some minor differences in the numbers between the reserve from economic uncertainty shifts. If expenditures change, that number changes. There is slightly more restricted program balance. There's slightly less LCFF supplemental balance, and the rest of the numbers maintained the same. So overall, there's very minor changes, but it did put a slightly larger unappropriated fund balance in place as we move forward. So Jenny, the next slide, please. We didn't talk about the multi-year projection, but I just want to do a high-level review of it for you. In your packet, we did a detailed review in the narrative and provided the assumptions. What I want to point out to you, we talked last time about the $1.1 million projected loss of income in LCFF revenue. And you can see that at the very top of this line from the overall 19.4 to the 18.3. And in the third year, it just goes up to 19.0. So you can see that that's your main source of income and it moves. And you as you planned for the second year for 2022-23, part of your ending balance in 21-22 really addresses that revenue shortfall. If you look at expenditures, you go from 29 million in 21-22 to 28.5 to 27.2. So there's staffing reductions that for the programs that are funded by COVID funding sources, so the ancillary programs that are being pushed in to help offset those concerns. But there's also, as staffing is brought into line with enrollment projections, you see some staffing reductions incorporated into your budget as well. What I wanted to point out on this page is your deficit spending just shy of 500,000 in the 21-22. It's still a 930,000 deficit spending more than you're bringing in 22-23, primarily because of that loss of your main funding source. And you can see that gap begins to close some to deficit spending of 523,000. And that's because your LCFF revenue comes up, but you're still funding step and column, health benefit increases, and there's a small built-in factor for increase in contracts, like non-public school contracts go up, the cost of electricity goes up. Those are some examples. Jenny, next page. So this line at the very bottom is your 3% state required reserve. 875, 855, 817. The numbers right above it are how much fund balance you have after fulfilling that reserve. So you can see that for 21-22, you can meet your state required reserve balance, but you're holding that money for future revenue loss right here above the 1.025. You can see that number when you look to the right goes away in 22-23 when you realize that funding loss. At the end of 22-23, your fund balance has gone down about $900,000, but you can still meet your 3% and have unappropriated of $354,000. When you look to the right, you can see you can still meet the 3% reserve of 817, but your unappropriated fund balance goes down to $87,000. And I don't think you need me to tell you $87,000 is not a lot of unbudgeted funds or available funds on a $27 million budget in the third year. The good news, Jenny, next page, is with careful watch on your enrollment and staffing ratios and appropriate adjustments to keep all the expenses in line, watching your expenses, watching your budget, working closely, you do anticipate being able to meet the state required reserve requirement for economic uncertainties for this year and the next 2 years, which means that the board can, in conjunction with the LCAP, adopt this budget and present it to the county office and be in compliance. And that's what I have for you.
Thank you. Thank you for that detailed explanation on some of those changes, though, and that was really helpful.
Ellie, can I just give the audience the page numbers, since the adopted budget package is on the website for anyone who wanted to know. The first summary pages are page 21 and 22 of that package, and the multi-year projection that Katrina reviewed is page 16.
Okay, thank you. And so any clarifying questions from the board? All right, we will open it up to the public. Any public comment? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board then. Any comments from the board? All right, Julie, we'll go ahead and vote. Julie.
Are we voting?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. Angie.
Aye.
Jeannie.
Aye.
Kelly. Aye. All right, now we'll move on to consideration of approval of resolution number 27, June 2020, 2021 regarding education protection account. And can I get a motion for this item?
So moved.
Thank you, Angie. In a second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Julie. All right. Trina, are you taking the lead on this item again, or Ann?
No, this is
It's back to you, Ann. I thought it would be back to you. Yeah. Thank you.
So the EPA is a routine item. We are required to adopt it every year. It's part of the law the voters passed, Prop 30. To be clear, EPA is not additional money to the district. It is money that is part of the local control funding formula. It is just a piece of it that came through Prop 30, but it's not extra money. We spend it all on instruction because you're not allowed to spend it on administration. We could choose to spend some on counseling or other kinds of services, but it's simplest to spend it all on instruction. And so that's what we do. We code teacher salaries and benefits to this pot of money. In September, when we present unaudited actuals, we'll present the final result for 2019-20 because that is a required, 2020-21. It's a required disclosure. It's the time of year where we get very confused about what year we're talking about. This is it. We're required to do it or else.
Right. Thank you, Ann. Any questions or comments from the public on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Any questions or comments on this item from the board? We do this every year, yeah. All right, we'll go ahead and vote. Julie.
Aye.
Angie.
Aye.
Jeannie.
Aye.
Kelly. Aye. All right, now we'll move on to the next item, which is consideration of approval resolution requesting to borrow fund transfer from county treasury for 21-22, which is another routine item. Thank you, Anne.
Yes, we do this every year. It is because our revenue doesn't come to us evenly. Our expenses mostly are pretty even month to month. But in particular, a lot of our revenue is property taxes, and that comes in two big chunks in December and April. It is quite common for districts to run out of cash in November. Some years it's sooner. It kind of depends on what other money is delayed. So we want to be prepared, and we adopt this resolution so that we can still pay our bills, whether or not we've gotten our money from the state and local governments.
Right. Any comment from the public? I see none. We'll bring it back to the board. Any comments or questions from the board? And we'll go ahead and vote. Jolie.
Oh, sorry, Kelly, could you get a motion?
I thought I did do a motion. Did I not do?
No.
Oops. Can I get a motion? Sorry. Thank you, Karen. I've been so good.
I'll move to approve the resolution.
All right. Angie, how about we give you the motion, and then Jeannie, do you want to second?
I'll second.
All right, now we can vote. Jolie.
Aye.
Angie.
Aye.
And Jeannie.
Aye.
And Kelly. Aye. All right, now we'll move on to consideration of approval to increase the revolving cash account to $5,000. Can I get a motion on that?
I move that we increase the revolving cash to $5,000.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. You both were really, you were working hard to get it in. All right, let's go back to Anne.
All right, so this district has for many, many, many years maintained a revolving cash fund with a balance of $2,850. We only use revolving cash in what I would call emergency types of situations. Almost all our bills are paid through the county treasurer. We process either payroll or accounts payable. It goes to SCO, then it goes to the county treasurer. But every once in a while it will happen that we need a check for something. We miss somebody's timesheet and they're a substitute and it's a lot of money. And by law, we have to pay them right away as soon as we know about it. And if we have someone who has worked for us many days, it is not unusual for the check to be more than $2,800. Well, when that happens, we end up writing a check out of the clearing account, and that is a no-no. It is potentially an audit finding because clearing is for when you have checks that you're waiting to clear. So we have this. We don't use this account very often, probably 3 or 4 times a year. But when we need it, we need it, and a $5,000 amount would be would cover almost all contingencies. So that's my request.
Hey, thank you, Anne. And we will open it up to the public. Any comment? All right, we will bring it back to the board. There's no public comment. Any questions or comment from the board? All right, we'll go ahead and vote. Jolie.
Aye.
Jeannie.
Aye.
Angie.
Aye.
Kelly. Aye. All right, now we're on to Mia items for you. So now we'll move on to human resources and consideration of approval of our monthly personnel report. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And go ahead, Mia.
Okay, so I do have some additions to the report that was submitted on Friday with the board agenda. We have another hire. It's a school counselor. His name is Henry Masuro, and he will be starting on August 9th. And I do have some resignations from a couple of our certificated employees. Lana McNamara, who is a special ed teacher at El Molino High School, and Noemi Reyes, who is a Spanish teacher at Anley High School. We also have some new hires for the new school year. Sharon Hallengren will be a Secretary 1 at West County High School. Christina Castellanos, Carmen Garcia, Gina Messia, and Stacy Smith are all working as part of the summer work crew. And then I do have some resignations with our classified staff. Melanie Alvarez, who is a behavioral assistant. Dave Ramalia, who is a paraeducator. And Darlene Packard has submitted her letter of retirement. She's going to be moving out of the area so she's closer to her family. And those are the updates for this month.
All right, thank you, Mia. We'll turn it over to the comments from the public. All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Any questions or comments from the board?
Oh, there's now some comments from the public.
Oh, okay.
I got them. First speaker, Mary Lou. Second speaker, Leah Woody. Mary Lou, you have the floor. I'm just changing my...
Hello, good evening. It's Marilu Saldaña. I wanted to just make a comment regarding Henry and Sharon, of course, but I'm really happy to hear that Henry's joining the counseling department team. So I'm really glad to hear that. So thank you for the great news. He did a great job as our intern at El Molino. So just having him join and be part of the community is really important, and Sharon as well. So I'm really happy to hear about the additions to the counseling department. So thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Next speaker is Leah Woody.
Well, I'm pretty much going to echo exactly what Ms. Saldana said. Yeah, Henry was a fabulous intern, and he went in, he was thrown into the deep end, right? And I'm excited to have him part of our team. And I also just want to wish and thank so much, Darlene, for your services. And I am so excited that Sharon is the counseling. So well done, counseling secretary. Well done. Good job. Thank you for everyone that's been on the hiring team. I know that it's continuing, and I just want to, I want the community to know that there's some really good things happening. And no, I did not want to leave Elmo, but thank you. There's a lot of resources right now, and I'm excited. Let's work together, and I'm looking forward to working with the board more and being part of the voice, because that's the most important thing, and that's the reason why I love my job, is that I make connections and relationships individually with families and students, and that's part of my job. It's not on my job description, but that's how I'm effective, is making relationships with families and students individually. And so thank you. And I'm looking forward to working with Henry and Sharon.
Thank you for your comment.
All right, we will bring it back to the board. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote. Jolie?
Here. Aye.
Jeannie?
Aye.
Angie? Aye. And Kelly? Aye. All right, now we'll move on to our next item, which is consideration of approval revision to California School Employees Association job descriptions, and I need a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Angie. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And Mia?
Well, I'm very excited to bring this item before the board because we've been working on this for about 3 years. It's been a lot of work, and I'm really happy that we're at this point. So the committee consisted of 10 stakeholders across the district, and we worked really hard to revise and update the job descriptions. Many of them were very outdated. They talked about using a typewriter, not even a word processor or a computer. So it was very long overdue. I can tell you that the CSEA regional office has approved all the job descriptions. The CSEA membership has approved the job descriptions, and now they're coming before the board to be approved.
Okay, thank you. So we can open this up for public comment. Any public comment? We'll bring it back to the board. Any comment or questions from the board?
I'm just excited that we're upgrading our stuff and we've moved on from the typewriter. That's exciting.
I just want to say that I know that, Mia, you have been working on this so long and have wanted this to happen for a very long time. And I'm so glad that everybody was able to finally get themselves in line.
No, congratulations, Mia. I know this has been a long time coming as well. So good work.
It was a team effort for sure.
All right. Well, we will vote on this now. Julie.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeannie.
Aye.
Angie.
Aye.
And Kelly. Aye. Now we have one item under facilities maintenance and technology. This is not an action item, but we are going to talk about fireworks.
This is my item. We have been for the past 45 plus years allowing facility use to the Kiwanis Club to host an annual, what we call 3rd of July fireworks celebration, where they light fireworks off the baseball field, and the people who come and enjoy the fireworks are in the stadium. Over the last 6 years, we have spent a significant amount of time fine-tuning and perfecting that process because of the new stadium that was built, and the field and the turf and the food and all the things that could jeopardize our warranty. And we have a really great relationship with the Kiwanis Club. And we do have Patty Stack here in the audience tonight. She is the primary contact that we have in the facilities department. So if you have questions about their participation and how this event comes to fruition every year, she can probably elaborate a little bit better on that. But over the last year, the city of Sebastopol, along with many other jurisdictions, have banned safe and sane fireworks sale distributions. We were one of the last counties in our area to allow that. And what that did was created a problem where certain third-party nonprofit organizations no longer can sell fireworks to fundraise annually, and it's a pretty big profit that they have. So City Council asked city staff to look at permitting one fireworks show a year and creating a lottery process for that fireworks show. So far, the folks that they've reached out, or at least that's what Chief Braga has told us, that nobody's really interested in hosting the fireworks show because they know how big the event is and how much effort it takes to put on. However, I felt that because the city council directed city staff to come up with a policy for awarding the lottery process, that we should have a discussion about it, because while the city is responsible for permitting the fireworks show, the district is responsible for permitting the use of the facilities. And it is a huge undertaking. I think I briefly explained it in the board report, that it starts in April, where we start our conversations about what it's going to look like. we meet regularly throughout the month of June, and we spend several days leading up to the 3rd of July setting up for this event. And it isn't just Kiwanis volunteers or their organization. We're working with multiple third-party vendors, volunteer vendors, as well as our own staff, myself, Denise, and all of our custodial crew work these events. It is a very large undertaking, and I have expressed concern to Chief Braga about how I felt that the permit should be part of the process for the lottery system, because I have grave concerns if we are going to be asked to allow fireworks from a different vendor every year. It's a lot to take on, and I have concerns. And so I wanted to at least address that here at the board level and potentially get some directions so that we could, as a united team, maybe respond to the city council with respect to their upcoming policy discussions about the lottery piece. Happy to answer questions.
Yeah, okay, well, let's bring it back to the board. Any thoughts on that? Any recommendations, Jeannie?
I have a bit of a concern that the city council would have that sort of direction without speaking to us first. I don't think that I will say that they probably didn't think about that, but it's a huge piece of the puzzle. And I think having a lottery and then having to quite possibly switch who is sponsoring this every year could be a real conundrum. And I think that maybe we need to share our thoughts with the city council before their meeting, I think, so that they are really aware of where we're coming from. I mean, I'm sorry, and I mean no disrespect, but it's not their choice who gets to use our facilities. It's our choice. And so I have a real concern about that.
And I did receive some correspondence from Bill Braga that they have heard our concerns and potentially will be pulling this item for consideration. But I just learned that yesterday and it was too late for me to pull this item. And I felt that if in case they didn't, we should at least have some direction or collaboration. That the Bill Braga has been really helpful in understanding our position in this. So I kind of echoed what you mentioned there. It puts us in a precarious situation of having to work with a new vendor every year and dealing with the intricacies that might entail.
Any other, Julie?
Who would be in charge of okaying the firework vendors in that case?
According to the policy that is being drafted, it would be everyone would be required to submit their request, and the policy would develop criteria on how that individual would be selected. Part of what I suggested to Chief Braga was that they had to obtain a permit from the district prior to submitting their application. And the permit that we've been giving out every year, and it's kind of just a known thing, is to Kiwanis. They're just on our books. We know that July 3rd every year, no matter what day it falls on, that's the facility.
Now, do they use the same firework company each year, or is it different?
Let's see what Patty says. She said she just, I don't know the answer to that question. I believe they do use the same vendor, and I believe the same vendor that they use is either the same one as Windsor or Runner Park, one of the two.
And Jeannie, comments from you? Yeah, I think, I sense that the city probably didn't have, I'm going to assume good intentions. I don't think they were probably trying to do anything that would potentially, hurt our fields or our facility use. They probably just didn't think about these layers because they're not the ones running the facility. So I feel like for me, if it sounds like the item got pulled, so hopefully this isn't going to move forward. But if it did, I think out of respect, wanting to go back in a respectful space with the city, would be good to talk with them before the item would go forward. And I think that this is coming out of the fact that now fireworks are no longer allowed to be sold in the city limits. And so there were nonprofits that every year used to make a lot of money off of the sale of those fireworks. So I think they wanted to transition to this system so that then those nonprofits could all have an opportunity to still get some money raised every year. So again, I think the intention around all this was probably very good and well. It's just they weren't really thinking about the logistics and the behind the scenes that goes into actually making this happen. So it just, from our standpoint, I agree with Jeannie. I just think it sounds like way too complicated for our staff who needs to be focused on our district facilities and work to do this training with new nonprofits every year. And we're not talking about, having a concert in our auditorium. This is these are fireworks. Can potentially destroy the field.
Yeah, it's serious. It's serious.
And Kelly, you're absolutely right. That is exactly, I think the city council was trying to do something positive out of the change in the fireworks. And I don't think they thought about the facility use and the impacts that could have. And I think that's why potentially the item might be pulled. However, it was already on our agenda. I figured it was important to discuss. It's also important to recognize that Kiwanis does an amazing thing every year for our organization or for our community, because they don't just give money to our school, they give, and our students and our staff, they give it to our entire community. And a large piece of almost 50% of the proceeds that they raise every year go right back to our district and our feeder districts. And it is 100% volunteer effort. And they do a fantastic fireworks show. I think one of the best. I go to it every year. I have my little seat up on the press box, and it's a really, really wonderful event. And they have managed over the last 2 years during COVID to continue to get creative and raise funds so that they can continue to support our students and our community. And so while tonight we were talking about the fireworks show in and of itself, it's an awesome opportunity for us to give this great organization and these wonderful volunteers some kudos to what they do for our students and our community, because it's a fun event. If you haven't been, go to it. I'm talking to everybody out there, and it really is exciting, and we enjoy having it, even though it is a lot of work to put it on. It's fun as well. And so it was, I think, developed out of a change in situation and to help other groups fundraise. But I think Kiwanis has got some creative opportunities for those organizations to potentially have booths at a future fireworks show. I know Kiwanis is looking to move into the 21st century with fireworks, especially because we're so fire prone, and possibly doing a hybrid of drones and whatnot. I would let Patty detail that out later. So they have lots of creative ideas. So just kudos to that organization.
Kelly?
Go ahead.
Can I make a recommendation that we have Jenny craft a memo on our behalf that shares some of these concerns, and that it gets to the city council and their chair prior to their meeting, whether it's pulled or not, kind of like we're having this discussion, because we don't know if it's going to be pulled. That way they hear from us before the 11th hour, so to speak. What are other people's thoughts on that?
I'd like to make one other comment. We do also defray the costs of the use of the facility because they donate so much back. They're, as part of our facility use fee structure, we do have flexibility per the board policy to reduce fees, especially when the funds go directly to serve our students. So just wanted to let you know they pay us for the facility use about $5,000 a year that goes back into the facilities funds. But if we were renting this out to somebody else, another nonprofit, and those proceeds weren't going to our students or to our community, we would likely need to increase the facility use fees to align with what we would be charging anyone coming off the street, but align with nonprofit groups.
Oh, thank you for that. Well, it seems like I agree. I mean, I feel like, I don't know that you need more direction at this point, Jenny. I mean, I think hopefully this item is not going to move forward. And if it does, it seems like we're all in agreement that we need to keep the relationship with Kiwanis, and however we go about doing that, it seems to make sense just from a protecting our facilities standpoint. And I like the idea that you're trying to create opportunities for the nonprofits to be able to set up stands or make money in other ways, because I know that was a big hit to the nonprofits who used to access that. Is there any comment from the public on this item?
Yes.
All right, David, do you want to come in? Okay, a couple people.
Sorry, I'm playing double duty here, so give me a second.
Looks like we have two people that would like to make public comment. David and Jennifer, do you want to bring them?
David Dutcher, you have the floor.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. If you all remember, when we were in discussions about upgrading the athletic fields, other than cryogenic rubber fill, the thing that we discussed most was the fireworks show and the compatibility and what it would take to pull it off without damaging those new fields. And Kiwanis over the years has done everything we've ever asked them. And we've adjusted it, and they've adjusted. You'd be starting from scratch every year, trying to ensure that the fields were properly taken care of. So I would stress to the city council that our interests are as important as anyone else's in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Jennifer Duckhorn.
Yeah, I just want to say that I have been to the fireworks show, and it is memorable. It is a great community event, and kudos to the high school for hosting it, and Kiwanis. They're amazing, and the more we can kind of support those relationships and continue with them, it's a win-win for everybody. It's just a feel-good moment for sure. Absolutely love it. Anyway, that's all.
Thank you. Agreed.
All right. Well, Jenny, I think you have your thank you for the public comment. David, I definitely remember those discussions around the fireworks when we were thinking about the fields. And I think, are you good on this item, Jenny? Do you need any? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Kelly, one more thing, and Jenny too. If it looks like it's going to move forward and you think you need board members in attendance at their meeting to speak up, please let us know.
I will. It's scheduled for July 20th, and the last correspondence I had with Chief Bravo was that he was attempting to pull the item, but I haven't gotten confirmation. I know that there was a couple fires today, so I'm not going to email him right now.
Yeah, just let us know.
All right.
Can I just say one special shout out to Sebastopol Fire for keeping that event safe every single year with their volunteers, and so many of them volunteer that night just to keep everything safe. So I just wanted to give Sebastopol Fire a shout out.
Agreed.
All right. Any other comments? All right, we will adjourn our meeting for this evening, and we have a future agenda item listed: review of the county-wide hazard mitigation plans. Anything else that folks would like to have on the agenda? Julie?
I would just like an update on how bond funds are being used.
Okay.
When would you like that to come back to you?
I'm sorry.
Is there a specific timeline you would like that to come back to you?
No, I just asked for it to be on the agenda a few times. So I just like to know how the bond funds are being used and what's happening on site and that type of thing with the bond funds.
Okay. Any other agenda items? All right. Well, that will be it for this evening.
We'll see everybody in August.
Have a good July, everyone, and we'll see you in a month or so. Yeah. Thank you. Have a good night.